Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Solstice MFA program's 2021 Reading Telethon for our Writers Helping Writers fundraising campaign, featuring three of our graduates, and one of our students. I'm Quentin Collins, the program's assistant director. I am a Black male with medium-length dreadlocks, currently two-strand twisted, wearing a dark gray polo, and I am in a room with a pair of coat hooks behind me. Before we get started, I would like to note that we acknowledge that the territory on which Pine Manor College stands is that of the Pawtucket and the Massachusetts people. Pine Manor's campus is a place to honor and respect the history and continued efforts of the Native and Indigenous community leaders which make up Eastern Massachusetts and the surrounding region. This statement is one small step in acknowledging the history that brought us to reside in this land and to help us seek understanding of our place within that history. Ownership of land itself is a colonial concept. Many tribes had seasonal relationships with the land we currently inhabit. Today, Chestnut Hill is still home to Indigenous peoples, including the Nipmuc Nations and the Massachusetts peoples. For more information, please visit the Massachusetts Center for Native American Awareness and the Commission on Indian Affairs of the state of Massachusetts. And now, a bit about the Writers Helping Writers need-based scholarships for those of you who don't know. For more than 15 years, the program has nurtured the diverse voices of America. 15 years, people. We are 15 years plus old. Each semester, we offer 10 $500 need-based scholarships to students in the program. With the help of fellow writers, family members, colleagues, friends, and even a few strangers, just like you, we continue to support working writers as they sustain their careers and creative cultures in their home communities, with all contributions going directly to the scholarship fund. We'll post the GoFundMe donation link in the chat throughout the evening. Not to give you all too much pressure, but last year we raised more than $1,000 during the telethon. Now, I know Meg often tells our community that we prioritize compassion over competition at Solstice, but for tonight, let's engage in some compassionate competition to raise more than we did last year by the end of tonight's event. We are currently at $3,625. Not only can you donate while you listen to the reading, but you can also hop on your social medias and tell people to donate and tell them, hey, this reading is happening, so you should come check that out while it's happening and donate. All those things are perfectly acceptable as long as you keep your mics muted during the Zoom conference, unless you are one of the readers in your reading. And in exchange for your fervent generosity, we have wondrous readings from current student Chris L. Butler, graduate Maryann Jacob Macias, graduate Jane Cawthorne, and graduate Mark Jednaszewski. All of our readers tonight have recently published books. Throughout the evening, we will post links to the work should you feel compelled to read more, and you will. Now we begin with Chris L. Butler. Chris L. Butler is an African-American and Dutch poet and essayist from Philadelphia and Houston. He is currently a student in the Solstice Low Residency MFA program, where he studies poetry and is enrolled in the pedagogy track. Chris earned a BS in History and Sociology from the University of Houston Downtown and an AA in Liberal Arts from Xavier University. He is the author of the micro chapbook Blurred, 80s Baby, 90s Kid from Daily Drunk Press, and the forthcoming hybrid chapbook Sacrilegious from Famadon Publishing and Company. Chris currently contracts with the Poetry Question as an editor consultant, Afros in the City as a social media coordinator and staff writer, and Bending Genres as the associate poetry editor. He's also our intern. He didn't put that in there, but he's our intern. He is the winner of the 2021 Kurt Brown Fellowship for Diverse Voices and the 2020 Daily Drunk Press Micro Chapbook Contest, a Best of the Net nominee, and a Pushcart Prize nominee. You can read his essays in Afros in the City, Flypaper Lit, Head Fake Hoops, Excuse My Thoughts, and others. His poems can be found in the Canadian Journal for Poetry and Critical Writing, Tramset, The Hellebore, For Happen to Mag, Lucky Jefferson, The Bayou Review, and more. He currently lives in Calgary, Alberta, with his wife Yasmin and their German Shepherd Labrador named Nickel. Chris.
Thank you, Q, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, everyone, for having me. My name is Chris L. Butler, and I am a Black male wearing a black and white Jay-Z shirt, my hero, and I'm in a gold love seat / ottoman. I'll be reading tonight from my now Pushcart nominated chapbook, Blurred 80s Baby, 90s Kid, and I am a Writers Helping Writers recipient, so I appreciate everyone's support in any way that they can. The first poem I'll be reading is about when I went to Florida when I was 8 years old. My grandma was a chronic lottery player and she won the lottery. And it's called On That Time We Went to Universal Studios because Granny hit the lotto. When I was a kid, I didn't have cable, so Nickelodeon was a holy grail only attainable at my aunt's house on the weekends. That's why when we went to Universal Studios, it was my dream to get slimed on the set of Figure It Out. It would have been a new baptism into the Church of Holy Kablam, where Nicktoons were gospel, Cousin Skeeter was the pastor, and Keenan was the deacon. We got drunk off of orange soda inside our chalices, which would explain why Kel was religiously in attendance. Truthfully, back then, I was just a rugrat, hoping to say, hey, to Arnold, but if push came to shove, I will settle for someone dressed as a wild thornberry. The next poem I'll be reading is about video games. Most people know this game, Grand Theft Auto. I was not allowed to play because I was underage. It was rated mature, but I found a way around that. And this is Grand Theft Auto Vice City was my guilty pleasure. In middle school, I hid a copy of GTA Vice City inside of a Dragon Ball Z DVD case next to my Disney movies, ultimately concealing the game like a bad report card. My mother wanted me playing Grand Theft Auto about as much as a mother hopes for her child to get cavities. I think she was afraid then that I would grow up to be a villain, running amok in the streets, stealing helicopters and tanks while wielding rocket launchers at people like t-shirt guns at the circus. Back then, video games were just an escape from the real world. I didn't grow up to steal any helicopters and tanks, but I did get more than a few cavities. The next poem I will be reading is about action figures. When I've liked politics since I was a child because my family, my mom and grandma were always playing Peter Jennings in the background. And I was just hearing it, but I was also playing with my toys. And this is a little bit about that. This is called Action Figure Diplomacy. My childhood toys showed me that I was destined to be a writer, like tadpoles are destined to become frogs, or cooped up caterpillars inside their chrysalis are ordained to become butterflies. I bridged the gap between action figure enemies. The X-Men and the Justice League came to a corporate ceasefire known as the DC Marvel Peace Treaty. In my world, I created a universe where Spider-Man was king and Buzz Lightyear was the prime minister who took the country to infinity and beyond. These plastic warriors lived out stories so creative, Stan Lee would have hired us if not for child labor laws. One time, a rich friend and I created a home movie with our action figures. If Kickstarter or YouTube existed back then, perhaps we would have gotten Nickelodeon's Action League Now taken off the air. It's too bad that his parents made him become a doctor, because Lord knows that I could never afford film school. The next poem I'll be reading is a poem about being a teenager. It's called St. Denis Fair. The St. Denis, I grew up Catholic, and St. Denis was a parish right outside of West Philly where I grew up in a small suburb called Havertown. They had an annual fair, and I didn't go to church there, but everyone went to this fair. Popcorn, cotton candy, 20 from my mother, spending money, getting dizzy from the Gravitron and stumbling out with joy, standing in line for the pirate ship with friends, enjoying the moment anyway. I laugh, knowing deep down this is our last fair together as a group. Next year means college. Peanuts bubblegum, a Ferris wheel wide from the cute girl from class. My heart wallops with teen angst. Smiling faces, holding hands. I can't help but hope the Ferris wheel gets stuck at the top. Sunsets with school crushes, so much hanging on the idea of mutual interest. Corn dogs, pop rocks, as I hear the bits of sugar dancing in her mouth. She is still cute, even with cobalt teeth. The music plays a tune of excitement to match the mood at the fair. Sweet, soft pretzels, sweet Hershey kisses. As the wheel turns forward, so does our connection, and all is right in the world. My name is Chris L. Butler, and I am finished reading. Thank you so much to the Solstice MFA and everyone who supports.
Wow. Wow. Chris, one of the things I love about your work is it always speaks to my heart, my childhood. The nostalgia hits me so deeply. And you know what else hits me really deeply? The generosity of so many people in this program. So I refreshed once, I'm gonna refresh again. Within the past few minutes during that reading, we raised an additional $200 toward the fundraiser, which means we are now at $3,825. That also means that if you want to beat last year's record, you have just a little over $800 more to raise during this reading tonight. And you know why that's so important? Did you know that nearly 30% of Solstice students receive Writers Helping Writers scholarships? Not only are these funds here to help people achieve their dreams of getting an MFA degree, but it speaks to the importance of community among writers. Now, I don't know about, a lot of folks about why they sought out Solstice, but sometimes we often hear the fact that it's because, as Meg often says, some people feel like they're writing alone in a basement. And one of the ways we pull people in and we become literary citizens is to find ways to create space for other people within the writing world. And one of the ways we can continue to do that is to offer these scholarships, which, we don't just do this because it's a thing that can make us competitive in the MFA market. We do it because we believe that finances should not be a barrier to someone achieving their dreams of being the best writer that they can be and write their stories in the best ways they can. Plus, between submittable fees, all that postage, if you're having to send out your manuscripts, hard copy, you need ink for your fancy pens and your notebooks and things. We want to just give you just a little bit more if we can to help you get your MFA degree. So donate, donate, donate. Next up to the virtual microphone, we have Maryann Jacob Macias. Her debut picture book, Tios Tutu, is this is not forthcoming. This was forthcoming when she sent me this bio. It's out now. Order it. You should order it now. From Dial Books for young readers, and received a starred review from Kirkus Reviews. School Library Journal's review said, written with poise and grace, Macias's gentle story is filled with warmth from the joys of self-expression and calm assurance found in loving support. Not only that, her second picture book from Dial was forthcoming. So you gotta wait for that one, but the first one, get that now. Maryann received her BA in English from the City College of New York, CUNY, her MFA in Writing for Children and Young Adults from the Solstice MFA program, and a certificate of professional achievement in human rights from Columbia University. Maryann, I welcome you to the virtual mic.
Quentin, you are a development natural. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here and to be able to do something, anything, even this small for Solstice, which is actually when I started writing this book, 32-page picture book, and I started writing it 12 years ago, 2 kids later. I'm Maryann. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am South Asian. I have tan skin, black hair, and this green wall behind me that seemed like a good idea at the time. And I'm going to read from my picture book, Teo's Tutu. Teo entered his first day of ballet class holding Amma's and Papi's hands. These were the hands that twirled him during the cumbia and waved to the Bhangra beat when they all danced at home. But ballet was nothing like cumbia or Bhangra. As Teo peeked inside the studio, his stomach felt topsy-turvy. Amma kissed him on the forehead. Just enjoy dancing, like we do at home. Remember how excited you were when we saw Swan Lake, Papi asked? Teo nodded, picturing the arch of the dancers' feet in releve, their split straight legs as they leaped through the air and their perfect pirouettes. They seemed so free, floating across the stage, their costumes gleaming under the bright lights. Sorry. Ms. Lila patted the spot on the floor next to her. Teo sat down. Finn pointed to Teo's tutu. Why are you wearing that? Because it's pretty, Teo replied. Ms. Lila smiled. I wish I had a tutu like that. Tinkling piano notes filled the studio as the class stretched their arms up and side to side. They touched their toes and made butterfly wings with their legs. Teo never knew he was so flexible. He raised his hand. When do we split in the air? It takes a lot of practice to perform a grand jeté, Ms. Lila answered. First, we have to learn the basic positions. Ms. Lila demonstrated first through third positions. Teo's feet were light on the ground. The box is blocking the text for me. I'm going to skip to the next line. I should know that the rest of that sentence, but he held his arms out softly as the music swirled around him. He knew these were small but important steps, and he wanted to get them just right. Each week in class, Teo learned new movements. He loved how his ballet slippers hugged his feet, like vines coiled around a tree, and the way his tutu swayed like the autumn breeze. He couldn't wait to perform on stage, under the lights in a fancy costume, before a real audience. At home, Teo practiced. His arms and legs were ocean waves flowing. The music was the current guiding him. Soon, he could stand on his tiptoes in releve. But arabesque was so hard, he kept losing his balance. One day, Ms. Lila had an announcement. Our costumes for the recital have arrived. The class waited excitedly for her to open the box. Small packages of sparkly lavender-skirted leotards and silver shirts with black pants emerged. Please choose the costume you'd like to perform in, Ms. Lila said. Teo knew which costume he wanted to wear. The tutu reminded him of the peonies outside the conservatory where they saw Swan Lake, with their layers and layers of petals. As he grabbed his leotard, Teo felt everyone's eyes on him. This wasn't the kind of attention he wanted. Slowly, he picked up the shirt and pants and placed both costumes in his bag. That night, Teo pulled on the black pants. They were so plain. The silver shirt was shiny, but it didn't sparkle. Teo felt stiff as he couldn't get his leg high enough for a proper arabesque. Next, Teo tried on the leotard. It was soft and stretchy, The tutu fluffed out around him like a cloud as he rehearsed the recital routine. This must be how the Swan Lake dancers felt. Teo loved who he saw in the mirror. But what if the audience didn't love him back? Amma peeked in. Dinner's almost ready. Just then, Teo heard his family's favorite playlist. The shaking of maracas got louder as he went downstairs. You're ready for the stage, Papi beamed. He took Teo's hands and they two-stepped the cumbia forward and back. Afterward, the boom of the bhangra dole echoed throughout the apartment as they all bounced and pumped their hands in the air. They held hands and danced until dinner time. When Teo arrived at the recital the next day, he slowly approached his class backstage, then paused. His stomach did fouets. Amma knelt down. These are the ways we must be brave sometimes. Papi put his arms around Teo. Tú eres valiente. You are brave. Teo pictured himself at home, dancing with Amma and Papi. In his head, he heard the dole drum as they danced bhangra. He imagined the way his hips shook like maracas when they danced the cumbia. He remembered the Swan Lake dancers gliding from one end of the stage to the other. Most of all, Teo thought about how much he loved to dance. Ms. Lila gathered her dancers. You look perfect, Teo, she said. They walked onto the dark stage together, hands clasped. When the curtain opened, Teo's arms and legs knew just what to do. He fluttered around the stage, his costume twinkling under the warm lights. His arabesque was poised and balanced. The music stopped. The audience was on its feet cheering. Teo's heart felt bigger than his whole body. He beamed out at his mom and dad, his biggest fans. I just wanted to show you the dedication. Thank you so much. I get so emotional when I see the artwork, and I am still trying to figure out how not to let my hands get too sweaty when I'm working the cursor and reading. But this was so fun. Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to write a book about unconditional love.
Thank you so much, Maryann. That book is beautiful. It's wow. Like it's a stunning message and a stunning book. So congratulations so much on wow. Okay. Let's roll along with the unconditional love here. Because solstice is all about compassion. And because of that compassion, let's refresh one more time. Let's see where we're at. So I'm gonna let you all slide this time because the number is exactly the same. That's okay. You have more readers. We have a little bit more time to kind of pick it up because remember we have this little competition going on. Again, compassionate competition this time. The solstice is all about compassion. Now, I don't know if you all have been anywhere else, as a writer or even on the internet, but when you read what people say about like what it's like being a writer, like you could really think it's like Battle Royale or Hunger Games or even Squid Game, like see, I had a reference in there for various like time periods of, this fashion of or Gladiator. Gladiator is a good one. That's Russell Crowe's probably, height of his career right there, Gladiator, right? We don't want to fight each other to the death for space and writing. We want everybody to be there. We want to get to the goals and the achievements we want. We want to bring everybody along the way. One of the ways we do that is with these Writers Helping Writers scholarships. As we've mentioned before, we do not want finances to be a barrier to being the best writer that you can be. because there are so many amazing writers out there who, if they just had just a little bit more, just a little bit more support, they too could get the MFA degree that they would like to have. And I don't just say this in general, but I think that Solstice has done so much to nurture a space that is not only welcoming, but very much does focus on giving you the tools to build, as I've told people before, the house you want to build, right? Solstice doesn't want to make you build the Solstice house, right? You leave with your house, but Solstice says, here's the hammer, here's the skill saw, here's the crosscut saw if you want to do something a little bit manual, and here's the nail gun. Here's how these things work so that, one, you leave a few bumps and bruises, but two, you get the dream house of your wanting for so long. And if we're going to continue to do that for people of all kinds of diverse backgrounds, we can continue to do this work with the Writers Helping Writers scholarships. So please donate. If you continue to donate and there's like so many jumps in these numbers, I can tell you fewer terrible jokes. So you can have a little bit less of that on your Thursday night. So if nothing else is encouragement, you get to bypass some of my humor. So please donate. But in the meantime, we have our next reader, Jane Cawthorne. Jane Cawthorne writes about women on the brink of transformation. Her first novel, Patterson House, is forthcoming in the fall of 2022. She has edited 2 anthologies of E.D. Morin. The most recent, Impact, Women Writing After Concussion, has received praise from the medical and literary communities. Her work has appeared in anthologies, magazines, newspapers, and literary journals. Her play, The Abortion Monologues, has been produced many times in Canada and the US. She lives in Canada and recently moved from Toronto to Victoria on Vancouver Island and looks forward to never having to shovel snow ever again. And I think that's a worthy goal for all people. So welcome, Jane.
Thanks so much, Q. I love the Solstice program, and I hope you all donate. It really helped me as a writer, and I know how much it can do for people. I'm a white woman. I'm sort of a cliche of a white woman, older white woman writer with my gray hair and my readers on my nose and the books in the background. And I'm going to read from a story called Talbot Crescent. At the sound of the scream, Mary scanned the yard. Out the kitchen window, she counted 8 children, not all hers, thank God, huddled in the middle of a decrepit rectangle of crusty snow that was supposed to be a backyard hockey rink. Dan had meant well, but with the autopact signed and all the plants in Windsor ramping up production, he never had time to flood the ice anymore. Kids being kids, they had found all kinds of ways to use the space. Today, it provided borders for a game that involved 2 tricycles, some lawn chairs from the shed, and then she saw it, the lawn dart game. The huddle shifted as faces looked towards her in the kitchen window. Patty was on the ground with a lawn dart in her upper arm, and that Forrester kid was about to pull it out. Mary ran into the yard in her slippers, skidded on one of the few remaining patches of ice, and fell hard beside her daughter. Don't touch it. The Forrester kid dropped his hand from the dart. At least he had the decency to look guilty. She should have been keeping a better eye on them. If she picked Patty up, she might do more damage. Carolyn's boy, Brian, looked like he might throw up. Mary couldn't cope with that too. Brian, go get your mother. But Carolyn was already running into the yard, snow boots pulled over black slacks, and her husband's camel-colored coat flapping over a chic matching turtleneck. She always looked great, like a beatnik. Don't move the dart. Carolyn had been training to become a nurse when she got married. Do you want me to get Dan, she asked. Yeah, he's at work. There's no such thing as a weekend for a shift worker. Okay, let's see what we've got here, said Mary gently, unbuttoning Patty's coat. Carolyn took charge of the other children. Brian, take Sean and Dustin to our house. The rest of you kids, go home. The little crowd dispersed. The Forrester kid mumbled, sorry. It's okay, said Mary. I'm sure it was an accident. The Forrester kid did not leave. I can't see what's happening with this coat on. Do you want me to get some scissors so we can cut it off? That would mean buying a new coat. Mary hesitated. Her teeth started to chatter. Wait, let me think. As she said it, the dart fell out and rolled in the snow, leaving a thin trail of blood. The Forrester kid paled. Patty wailed again. Mary pulled Patty's arm out of the coat. Blood had seeped through her sweater. Okay, let's go. She might need stitches. Carolyn whipped the silky scarf from around her neck. Tie this around her arm. I'll pull the Falcon into the driveway. The Forrester kid shadowed Mary to her back door and then appeared again around the front. It's going to be all right, Mary said to no one and everyone. The Forrester kid loped towards his house in his two big hand-me-down snow boots, shoulders rounded, head down. Other mothers, even Mavis Roth, were at their doors watching. Carolyn and Bud, the Bremners, were the only family on the street with a second car. As a manager, Bud got a new company car every 2 years. And last year, when it came time for a new car, he bought the 62 Falcon Squire he'd been driving and told Carolyn to get her license. Carolyn's good fortune caused a ripple of resentment on Talbot Crescent, especially from Mavis Roth, who had always made snide comments about Carolyn's clothes, her good figure, her beautiful house, her new appliances, and even her willingness to help others. At the Bremners' Christmas open house, Mavis had looked around at the dining room table laden with treats, the sparkling decorations, the fully stocked bar, and at Carolyn herself, and said, well, with only one child, she has the time. There wasn't a person on Talbot Crescent Carolyn hadn't helped with that car. Look at that Mavis waving like she's my best friend. Oh, she's not that bad, said Carolyn. Carolyn never said a bad word about anybody. If it weren't for Carolyn, Mary thought she would go crazy. She couldn't even really say why. She could go next door any morning after the boys went to school and find Carolyn at her kitchen table, smoking a cigarette and drinking coffee with the Windsor Star spread out before her. She talked to Mary as though Mary had already read the news and asked her what she thought about all kinds of things: civil rights, Malcolm X, Vietnam. Carolyn would never let her get away with saying she didn't know, but sometimes she really didn't. One day, Mary said, it's not even our war. Nope, maybe not, said Carolyn, but we're in it. We're selling weapons. Mary hadn't known that. But what did it matter? The kids were enough of a worry. Dan was too rough on Sean, a sensitive type, Dan called him. That's what prompted the hockey rink. Get the kid outside, Dan had said. What's wrong with being sensitive? Carolyn had asked. Would you rather he was insensitive? Carolyn always had a different perspective, and once Mary heard it, she wondered why she'd never thought of it herself. Last week, Dustin had tried to take apart the television. He had a screwdriver in his hand and was tinkering away at the back of it when she found him. All Mary could think about was that he could have been electrocuted. Maybe she didn't pay enough attention to him. That could happen with the middle child. When she asked him what he thought he was doing, he said he wanted to let the people out. When she told Carolyn, Carolyn laughed so hard about it, she made Mary laugh too. She called him Dustin the Liberator. That's exactly the kind of joke Carolyn would make. She said it sounded like an anecdote for Reader's Digest and suggested Mary write it up and send it in. Imagine thinking Mary could do that. Patty was still with her every minute of the day, practically attached to her, holding her ham or her leg or her apron, her thin little arms always outstretched, begging to be picked up. Mary had practically pushed Patty out the door this morning. It was all her fault. An hour later, Patty had 3 stitches in her arm and was curled up in the emergency waiting room chair beside Mary, sound asleep. The scar would not be any worse than the one left by her smallpox vaccination, the doctor said. Mary teared up anyway. When they arrived back home, Dan was in the driveway. Bud came over and told me I was on my way to the hospital. He scooped Patty from Mary's arm. Mary gave Carolyn a hug and said, thanks again. She waited for Dan to say thanks too, but he was already carrying Patty into the house. I'll get the boys, she said. Don't worry, I'll send them home. Inside, Dan said, you should have called me. Carolyn was here. We managed. You should have called me, he repeated. Carolyn had started taking night classes at the newly opened University of Windsor, art history and sociology, whatever that is. She tried to explain it to Mary, but Mary still wasn't sure she understood. One night after dinner, when Mary was finishing the supper dishes and Dan was still sitting at the table, Dan wondered aloud why Bud would let Caroline do such a thing. Waste of money, he said. Mary kept her back to him. The blackness of the failed backyard rink held her attention. The grass would probably be dead in the spring. Dan said, well, she knew what she was supposed to do. She was supposed to agree. She was supposed to say that Carolyn should be satisfied at home. After all, on Bud's management salary, Carolyn had everything any woman could possibly want. New Frigidaire appliances, including an under-the-counter dishwasher, and the car, of course. But Mary couldn't play her part. A tightness came over her as a series of possibilities opened and slammed shut just as fast. What if she said she did not think it was a waste of money at all? What if she said she admired Carolyn's ambition? Would he stomp out of the room, disappear into the basement for an hour or for the evening? Disappearing forever would be bad. Maybe she could get her old job back at the department store. How could she do it all? A job and the kids? Oh, this was crazy thinking. How would she ever explain that their marriage had ended over a fight about her neighbor taking night classes? It didn't make any sense. Dan was a good man. Everyone thought so. He gave Mary her money every week without fail. And she could buy her groceries and incidentals without having to account for every purchase like some of the wives on Talbot Crescent had to do. Sure, her allowance was never quite enough, but it was almost enough. Why split up over someone else's situation? The plate and the dish towel were still in her hands. Dan was waiting for a response. This fight wasn't worth having. Besides, what was wrong between them had nothing to do with Caroline. The real problem was that when Dan had criticized Caroline for going to the university, Mary had felt the walls close in around her. How could she ever explain that? She had hated school. Dan stood up and said, waste of money again, and went to the living room to watch TV with the kids. Thank you very much for listening, and please donate to the Writers Helping Writers Writers Helping Writers Fund, because there's a lot of writers like Carolyn, or a lot of women like Carolyn out there that are just waiting for a chance. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jane. You know, one of the great things I love about that is not only hearing the actual the actual text, but hearing you read it is it sounds like you're gossiping with us, which is like awesome because I feel really let in. I'm just like, yeah, like tell me more. What's going on in the neighborhood? Because I am so nosy in everyone else's business. Now that we are into our next intermission, let's find out how unfunny everyone thinks I am. So, refreshing again, we have raised another $100. So that means that, let's see, me not telling jokes is worth $100 currently. We can bump that up a bit. We really can. I know there are some people out there who may find my humor a little too edgy and I don't smash enough watermelons or something like that. So we want to appease those people. We want to donate so much more. So the thing about the Writers Helping Writers scholarships is not only are you supporting, you know, a writer who's going to be in the program themselves, you're also supporting the community around them. Solstice is so much richer for every single student that we bring in. And we go through so much together. We go through some amazing times in the student lounge when we're able to gather in person, some interesting nights of literary Pictionary, and some really deep and heavy times in workshop that we work through together as we're bringing these stories to where we want them to be. And we can't do that if we can't bring everybody with us. And so these scholarships are, again, one of those many ways we create space for all of those people out in the world who want to achieve their dreams of earning an MFA degree and being the best writer they can be. So again, let's get those donations out there. Hop on your social media, tell people to contribute. You know, where we have at least $700 more to go, because I don't want to have to, in the end of the night, tell you all that you couldn't beat the people who were here last year, and some of them were you. A lot of them were you. So you have to, you have to capitalize on this time right here, right now, to contribute to the Writers Helping Writers fundraising campaign, and to carry us home on the readings, to compel you, to give you a sense of urgency. we're going to have our final reader, Mark Jednaszewski. Mark grew up in Tampa and studied marine engineering at Kings Point. He splits his time between home in Philadelphia and his home at sea, working as a mariner on a commercial cargo ship. He received his MFA from the Solstice MFA program at Pine Manor College, where he was the 2018 Dennis Lehane Fiction Fellow. This fiction has been nominated for Best of the Net, appearing in Mineral Lit, Gravel, and Profound Experience. He is the author of Scales of the Ouroboros, a prose chapbook published by the Cupboard Pamphlet. Mark, welcome to the virtual microphone.
Thanks, Quentin. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here, and thanks for inviting me to read. So let me just explain the structure of the book real quick. It's 24 pieces of flash fiction that's divided as time zones, and each section, it's about a single crew member on a ship going around the world, circumnavigating. And I'm going to start in the middle and jump around a little bit. The first piece I'll read is in the time zone UTC -1, North Atlantic Ocean, 636 nautical miles south of Cape Verde. Engine cadet. Trains to become an engine officer, assists as directed. His name is Jeremy. The engine cadet has rubber gloves on this time. Last time he cleaned out the seawater strainer, he daydreamed of the deck cadet, the way she smiled at him at the Panama Canal. Last time, he reached into the strainer basket, expecting a handful of straws and bottle caps, but instead squished a bloom of dying jellyfish through his fingers. The second mate had to wrap the engine cadet's hands with a greasy gauze to ease the pins and needles on his palms. Aside from open ocean, only the turquoise waters between Paradise Islands pass through the strainer, so he doesn't expect to find plastic waste. He has a strainer basket on a plastic sheet in the engine room, and it looks empty. He shines his flashlight through the mesh of the strainer, a microscopic chain link fence, and sees a small crab circling the steel disc on the bottom. He scoops out the crustacean with a small machinist's ruler. The crab balances on the end like a kid on a diving board too afraid to jump. The engine cadet places the crab in his earplug container and snaps the lid shut. He dumps his water bottle and fills it with seawater. Up in the galley, the cook catches the engine cadet looking for an empty stainless bin at the salad bar. So now the engine cadet must make a salad to avoid suspicion. The cook appears suspicious anyway because the kid never eats salad. When the cook leaves, the engine cadet discards 3 withered cherry tomatoes from one of the bins and takes it up to his stateroom. He fills the bin with the seawater from his plastic bottle and releases the crab into the small pool. The animal seems scared and defensive with its cartoon eyes resting on stalks, but the engine cadet also thinks it is grateful, and he smiles for the first time since he can remember. Advanced clocks, 1 hour. That's how every section ends, but I'm going to jump ahead about 6 hours, 6 time zones. I forgot to describe what I look like. I'm a white guy with glasses with a blue shirt, and I'm in my finished basement. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Next one is in time zone UTC +5, Laccadive Sea, 219 nautical miles west of Sri Lanka. Steward's assistant, washes dishes, food prep. Her name is Dorothy. The chief steward knows what deodorant looks like, what a bag of Tootsie Pops looks like, but the steward's assistant must run the slop chest for him every week anyway. Since the chief steward cannot read the names of his crew members or mark on the clipboard the items they want to purchase, the steward's assistant must stay up late to cater to the crew's impatience for supplies. It is 8 o'clock, but really 9 because of the time change tonight, and she must report to the galley early to slice tasteless melons and brew coffee. The slop chest looks exactly like a prison commissary, and the crew crowds around the chain link barrier to peek at the stacks of mouthwash and cigarettes, candy and dental floss, toothpaste and Gatorade. The engine cadet is first in line. He wants a bag of Skittles and a case of root beer. After the steward's assistant puts the items on the counter, the engine cadet changes his mind. 2 bags of Skittles. The wiper stumbles into the engine cadet and demands 3 cartons of Marlboro Reds. The steward's assistant says, "You know 2's the limit," flinging them into his arms. The wiper calls her a fucking sea hag and saunters away with the 2 cartons sandwiched in his grip. Grinding her teeth, the steward's assistant records the purchase on the clipboard. The steward's assistant adds a pack of Bic razors to his tab, and the graphite at the end of her pencil snaps. The next morning, she prepares the galley for breakfast, slicing tough honeydews and filling pitchers with ice water. Instead of crosswords during her break, she slips into the dry stores chamber and removes a packet of disposable razors from her apron pocket. She uses the blunt end of a cleaver to crush the razors inside the wrapper. She dumps the broken plastic and metal pieces onto a plate and separates them. The steward assistant then presses each gleaming sliver into the skin of a golden delicious. She takes the apple with her to the galley window, where she positions the fruit so the punctures will not be visible. The wiper is the only person on the ship who eats the yellow ones, and they taste like sand. So the steward's assistant does not worry about anyone else getting hurt, though she would not mind seeing most of her shipmates take the bait. Advance clocks 1 hour. And we do move to the next time zone immediately after this section. Time zone UTC +6, Bay of Bengal, 526 nautical miles east of Sri Lanka. Wiper, cleans engine spaces and machinery. Name, Clyde. The wiper shakes out a cigarette, lights it, and drags half of it down, not once taking his eye off the gallon of bleach beneath his desk across his stateroom. In these cramped quarters, the white jug is the only object not covered with a layer of dust. If the captain were to conduct a surprise room inspection, the bleach would be invisible to him. The captain would never suspect the jug to be filled with the cheap whiskey the wiper purchased at the naval base in Bahrain. He has 2 jugs, the one singing to him now and another in the engine room. On the tiles beneath a pair of greasy coveralls, the wiper finds a coffee-stained paper cup. He crawls to the desk, unscrews the blue safety cap, and pours whiskey to the brim of the cup. The gentle rolling of the ship causes some to spill over, so the wiper slurps down a finger while the cup is still on the deck. He pours a second round, but 2 is his limit, not to control his intake, but so he has enough to last him to Busan. 2, not enough to satisfy, but enough to quiet his mind and still his hands. 2, the number of children he has abandoned. The wiper's ritual is a tribute to them. He stands and stumbles to the head. He trips over the threshold, his skull barely missing the toilet. The ship is rolling with increasing intensity. The wiper stands so he can hate his reflection for half a minute. His apple is on the chrome soap dish. He takes the sticky piece of fruit, checks his pocket for cigarettes, and leaves the stateroom. Outside, moonlight scatters across the rolling sea. The wiper examines his apple to find his first bite, but the ship rolls hard and he drops it over the side. When he reaches for it, he tumbles over the railing. The crest of a wave meets his back. The water is warm and the trader shushes past like he's falling in slow motion. The propeller wash fizzes and he treads the micro bubbles. The ship's lights converge and diminish. Waves do not break out here. No trees move in the air and whisper their interpretation of the wind. Only 2 satellites remain, the sunlit moon circling the earth and the moonlit apple circling the wiper. He closes his eyes, unwilling, unable to fathom the distance between his feet and the ocean floor. Advance clocks 1 hour. We'll jump 5 time zones to UTC +11, Tasman Sea, 617 nautical miles east of Australia. Cat, hunts vermin, boosts morale. His name is Magellan. The ship's cat makes a lap around the ship to hunt an exhausted white-bellied cuckoo shrike who mistakenly joined the earthless, treeless, and wormless trader, a barren steel vessel that will not see fertile land for days. advance clock 1 hour. Thank you.
Wow. So, Mark, I get so lost in the details of everything that's happening, and then like dark stuff happens. Like it's amazing how beautiful it is, and then there's like tension created with the fact that there are some very sinister things happening at the same time. That is wonderful, and I think that of all the beautiful and gorgeous things that are happening tonight, we have to further applaud the large amount of generosity here, because apparently I am just really not that funny at all, because we are now up to, look at that. No, wait, there's another one. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do some math, because I'm, not really a math person, because I'm a writer, right? We're writers, we're not math people. But we are currently up to $4,331 after a just slew of donations during Mark's reading. Mark, you did it, bud. So I will have to continue to say, as much as I am so thrilled that you all don't find me funny, and that hurts me just a little bit, not very much, but just a little, that I am so thrilled and so overwhelmingly appreciative of your generosity. There are so many things I do for this role at Solstice, and I think that if any of it is the greatest joy I have, is the opportunities I get to not only see you all, whether it be in Zoom or in person, but these many reminders of why I chose this program and loved this program when I was a student, because of the overwhelming um, community of kindness that I don't believe we'll be very hard pressed to find anywhere else if it's not a space we created, because we are something special and amazing. And I have to say, we owe so much of that to Meg. So first, I want to give a huge shout out to Meg for not only doing so much to create this space and community of compassion, but also for working so diligently behind the scenes with Zoom and posting the links to not only the fundraiser, but to all the books, and encouraging you all to support the writers who are in the program and who are also doing so much once they leave here, and still in, as we've seen. And I want to, extend the hearty thanks to our 4 readers tonight. You all were brilliant. I am just always so stunned to hear your work. And in some cases, this is the first time I've got to hear you read. So I'm blown away. And thank you so much for accepting the invitation to come and read with us tonight. So can we get a microphones on audible round of applause for our readers tonight?
Yay! Woo!
Yay!
Yay!
Reading.
Fabulous reading.
Wonderful.
Standing.
That was so fun.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, if you didn't donate tonight, or if you know somebody who might be willing to donate later, don't worry. The campaign runs through the end of the year. Thanksgiving is coming up, so there's a time, where people are thankful. Well, you might want to usher it in between the turkey and, canned cranberry sauce, that there's a fundraiser going on. And continue to share that link, send it out in emails, text your friends, accost your coworkers on Zoom, if you're still on Zoom or in the office, but at a good 6 feet, and say, hey, we're fundraising for this scholarship that we have for my MFA program. And, we're going to push so close. We only have so little to go before we reach our goal of $5,000. And of course, I'm always thrilled to send out a lovely email saying we've hit it. Now let's stretch for a little bit more. Let's get up to 6,000. Last year, I think our stretch goal, we reached up to getting to 7,500, and we got about 6,500. So we can do this. And thank you all again for joining us tonight. Feel free to stick around, heap some more praise on our readers, and thank you again.